A quiet story about moving on, not with revenge or closure, but with a closed door and no words left to give.
I didn't flinch. Not when she said it. Not even when she smiled. That razor-sharp smirk she'd been perfecting over the past few months. Like this whole mess was just her clever way of saying checkmate, Lauren. My wife of 6 years, the woman who once used to laugh at my dumb movie quotes and sneak cold feet under my legs on winter nights, sat across from me. Now, like a smug executive closing the deal of a lifetime. Now you can finally be free, she said. Her voice dipped in sugar and salt, like you always pretended.
Ow.
I looked at her just for a second, not long enough to give her what she wanted, that flicker of pain. The tight jaw, the wounded pride. But long enough to memorize the way she said it. That line had been rehearsed. Could feel it like she'd been waiting weeks for this moment. Practicing in her mirror while her new guy probably waited in the car with the engine running. The pen in my hand felt heavier than it should have. Cold metal against warm skin. I clicked it once, then again, a mechanical heartbeat echoing through. The living room we used to call ours. The same room we painted together in dusty blue. The same couch she cried on when her father passed. Now it was just the stage for our final act. I signed one stroke, then another. The ink flowed smooth. Uninterrupted the way betrayal always does, once it gathers enough momentum, and as the pen glided across that line marked Danner, it didn't feel like closure. It felt like a quiet execution. Wow, Lauren whispered, pretending to be surprised. No hesitation at all. I kept the pen, placed it gently on the folder, and slid it toward her. I thought you'd want this, I said evenly. She laughed, a short, sarcastic sound that didn't reach her eyes. You know, I always thought you'd make a scene, shout, throw something, maybe even beg. Guess I'm full of surprises. Her gaze lingered, searching. Maybe testing the perimeter for cracks in my calm. But she didn't know that I'd already shattered days ago quietly, when no one could see, not when she left. No. It was that morning 3 weeks ago, when I found her perfume missing. The coffee still brewing. She wanted it to sting. She wanted it to feel like abandonment and routine. She was good at that. Subtle cruelty. You'll land on your feet, she said, standing up. You always do. I stood too, slower measured. I intend to. She grabbed her coat from the hook by the door, turning with a dramatic flair she probably thought looked effortless. Well, enjoy your freedom, Mark. I didn't reply. Just watched her leave the way she always did, with finality, but no apology. The door clicked shut behind her, and still, I didn't move. My eyes drifted back to the stack of papers. My name. In black ink, crisp and final. I'd imagined this moment 100 different ways, slamming the door in her face, tearing the papers in two, telling her everything I really thought. But when it came down to it, all I had was silence and a storm brewing just beneath my skin. I walked over to the window. Her car was still idling at the curb. She wasn't leaving just yet. That was her final move. She wanted to see if I'd crumble. Once she drove off, she wanted to own the last. Glanced the last word, but she didn't know me anymore. She didn't know that the version of Mark she broke, he signed those papers today. Sure, but the man who stood at this window now was just getting started. The silence came first. Not the kind that deafens. This one was different, spacious, deliberate. The kind of silence that settles into your bones and asks, what now? A week after signing the divorce papers, I handed over the keys to the old house and stepped into something new. A modest 2-bedroom townhouse on the edge of the city. Not flashy, not even memorable. Beige walls, outdated fixtures, and a carpet that carried faint echoes of someone else's life. But it was mine. No memories here. No, it's shadows of her perfume in the hallway. No argument still echoing off the kitchen cabinets. I unpacked slowly, methodically. Each box was its own quiet. Ritual dishes, clothes, books, nothing. From the marriage made it through. Didn't want objects that whispered reminders every time. I glanced at them. I bought new plates, basic white. I picked out a couch without testing its comfort. Just wanted something neutral, something forgettable. Even the curtains I hung were more about blocking the light than style. But there was something calming in the repetition, the screw of a chair leg, the hum of the drill, no one rushing me, no passive sighs in the background, just the quiet rhythm of a man rebuilding. One piece at a time, outside. Life didn't pause. Lauren apparently had taken a different path. Her Instagram sprang back to life, with the kind of energy that can only come from needing an audience. First, a boomerang clip of champagne glasses clinking, then photo of her toes in the sand, captioned, "Finally breathing again." A week later, a selfie with a man I didn't recognize. Tan teeth too perfect, wearing a necklace like he sold real estate in Miami. The caption, "Freedom looks good on me. ... and him." I didn't follow her, obviously, but mutual friends. The ones who hadn't taken sides, or at least pretended not to, made sure I saw them. Screenshots dropped into group chats, sent with curious emojis. "Dude, you okay? That was fast, huh?" I just nod. The truth? I didn't feel pain, not yet. What I felt was something colder. Not grief, not anymore. That stage had come and gone like a fever. What replaced it was this eerie sense of observation, like I was watching her spin in slow motion through a world she thought I still wanted a part in, but I didn't, not anymore. That's not to say I didn't feel anything. There were nights, quiet, still nights, where I'd sit on the new couch, staring at the bare wall across from me, and wonder how she pivoted so icily, how she went from sobbing during our last real conversation to posing poolside with someone new, while I was still figuring out which drawer the fork should go in. But I didn't text, didn't call, and when the ache started to crawl up my spine, I took it out on the house, fixed things that didn't need fixing, replaced light, bulbs with warmer tones, scrubbed corners until the sting of lemon cleaner became its own kind of therapy. People say revenge is about striking back. I disagree. Sometimes the real revenge is silent stillness, watching someone try to provoke you and getting nothing in return. She wanted a reaction. Every caption, every photo. They were arrows aimed at the softest parts of me, but she had no idea that those parts, they'd already been scorched. There was nothing left to pierce. One evening, as I was hanging the last picture on the hallway wall, a black and white shot I'd taken on a solo trip years ago, a notification buzzed on my phone. Lauren again. This time, as the caption read, "Nothing like a sunset in Santorini to remind you what life's really about. #blessed." I stared at it for a long second, then deleted the message thread entirely. That night, I slept with the windows cracked open, letting the city sounds drift in. Somewhere outside, a siren wailed, a dog barked, and I lay there, eyes open. In the dark, feeling something that wasn't peace, but maybe its first cousin. I didn't know what was coming next, but I knew this. I was no longer playing her game, and that might have been the first real win in a very long time. I wasn't looking for anyone, honestly. I didn't even want company, just wanted to be left alone with the hammer in my hand and the low hum of a podcast in the background. Solitude had its own rhythm, clean, predictable, but fate has a strange way of nudging you sideways. When you're finally standing straight, it started with a knock, a few weeks after moving in. I opened the front door and blinked twice before I recognized her, Emily Travers. We hadn't spoken since college. Not really. The occasional happy birthday post, or polite like on a Facebook memory, but that was it. And yet there she was, standing on my porch, holding a potted plant wrapped in brown paper and grinning like it hadn't been a decade. "Won't make me regret this," she said, lifting the pot slightly. "Supposed to be impossible to kill." I laughed. A real one caught off guard. Turns out she'd moved back into the city the year before. We caught up for a few minutes in the doorway, a fast blur of "So what have you been up to? And remember when?" before she tilted her head and looked past me into the barren living room. "Mark," she said gently. This place looks like a hotel lobby that forgot it was supposed to be welcoming. I smirked. It's temporary. No, she said, stepping inside like she hadn't asked. It's depressing, and I'm fixing it. That's how it began. Not with a spark, not even with a plan, just her rolling up her sleeves, pushing furniture around and somehow making the space feel less like a storage unit and more like me. She had an eye for color. Added a few rust-toned pillows. Swapped the harsh overhead bulb for a floor lamp with a warm amber glow. She showed up with paint swatches one Saturday. It made me vote like it was an election. We didn't talk about Lauren. I didn't need to say it. And Emily didn't cry. But her presence softened something hadn't realized was still sharp inside me. She didn't fill the silence. She just made it less lonely one Sunday. She dragged in a vintage coffee table she'd found at a thrift shop, a little beat up, but charming. We hauled it in together, both laughing when one of the legs fell off mid-lift, and for the first time in months, looked around my living room and thought, maybe this isn't just survival anymore. Maybe it's something new. Later that week, we grabbed coffee after she insisted I couldn't live on frozen dinners and black coffee. We sat outside the cafe. Sun low, her laugh drifting easily between sips. That's when it happened. Lauren saw us. She was across the street, walking with a friend. She paused, sunglasses sliding down her nose, gaze locked on me and Emily. Her expression flickered, half curiosity, half something else. I didn't wave. I didn't look away either that night. My phone buzzed. Lauren, the first text since the divorce. New girl already. That was fast. No punctuation, no emoji eyes. Just that brittle string of words like she wanted it to sound casual. But couldn't quite bury the bite. I stared at the screen for a moment, thumb hovering then. I locked the phone and set it face down. No. Reply. Let her wonder. It came out casually over coffee. Of all places, Emily and I had just finished arguing about throw pillows. Apparently, geometric shapes are out. Who knew? And I was thanking her again for helping make the place feel less like a bachelor's bunker when I asked, so what exactly do you do now anyway? She took a long sip of her latte and gave me a sly grin. I'm a realtor, she said, setting the cup down with a small clank. Mostly residential, some investment properties. Been doing it full-time for 5 years now. I blinked. Seriously? She nodded. Why do you sound so surprised? I don't know, I admitted. You always talked about opening a bakery in college. Well, ... Turns out I like contracts more than croissants. That night, lay in bed thinking about it. Realtor, residential, investment. And then it hit me. The old house. The one Lauren practically sprinted away from. The one that still sat under my name, gathering dust and back taxes. The place I used to call home. Now, just a reminder, I hadn't stepped foot inside since I closed the door behind me. But maybe it was time. To change that, the next day I called Emily. I've got a proposal, I said. I want to flip the old house. There was a pause. Then you serious? Dead serious? Another pause. Then that grin again, even over the phone I could hear it. I'm in. We visited the house that weekend. Walking through it felt surreal, like stepping into a preserved version of my past. The air smelled stale. The walls still wore paint she had picked out. There were even a few forgotten picture frames tucked behind a bookcase. But I wasn't there to mourn. Emily moved through each room like a strategist mapping out a plan. Tear out this wall, update the kitchen, refinish the floors. This place has good bones. She took notes, snapped photos, talked about resale value. I just followed her lead, watching a new chapter write itself in the blueprint of the old one. By the time we walked out, something inside me felt lighter. 2 weeks later, word started spreading. I didn't say a thing, but mutual friends always talk. And Lauren, well, she listens, especially when she's not supposed to. I got the first confirmation at a grocery store. Of all places, ran into Derek, a friend of ours, used to be our friend, now mostly just hers. He gave me a half smile and said, "So heard you're flipping the house." I just shrugged, figured it was time I did something useful. He looked uncomfortable. Lauren's not thrilled. I bet she wasn't, because in her mind, that house was meant to rot. A symbol of the marriage she left behind, she never imagined. I'd turn it into something profitable, especially not with another woman helping. I didn't gloat, not out loud. Anyway, but when I got home, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat on my modest couch in my modest townhouse, and let a small, satisfied smile curl at the edges of my mouth. The past wasn't a weight anymore. It was just leverage. It started with a voicemail clipped, breezy, and just a little too cheerful. "Hey Mark, it's Lauren. I think a few things of mine might still be at the old house. Mail, maybe some books. Nothing major. Just wondering when might be a good time to swing by." No mention of the house flip, no reference to Emily, just that familiar syrupy tone she used when trying to sound casual, like we were still friends, like nothing had burned. I waited a day before responding. "Sure, Thursday at noon works. I'll leave the box on the porch." I didn't offer small talk. "No. How have you been?" There's no hint of warmth. Just logistics. That Thursday, she pulled up in her usual flourish, sleek car, music spilling faintly from the windows. She stepped out, wearing sunglasses too big for her face and an expression like she wasn't sure what role she was playing yet. Ex-wife, victim, maybe still a star in a show she thought she directed. I watched from the upstairs windows. She picked up the small cardboard box he'd labeled Lauren Mail and Miscellaneous. She stared at it for a second, then rang the doorbell anyway. I let it buzz twice before answering. She smiled when I opened the door, too wide, too eager. "Hey," she said. "Didn't know if you'd be home. You said noon, right?" She glanced past me, scanning. The hallway behind my shoulder. "Place looks different." I didn't answer. She shifted the box in her arms. "So, flipping the house, huh?" There it was. I held her gaze. "Yeah, with Emily." I let the silence hang long enough to make a point. "She's helping." Lauren nodded like that meant something, like she was calculating odds. "That's good. You're moving forward?" "That's important." Her voice was light, but her grip on the box had gone white-knuckled. I didn't invite her in. Instead, stepped outside and gently pulled the door behind me, just enough to make it clear this wasn't a social call. She cleared her throat, trying to recover. "Well, I won't take up your time. I just thought maybe sometime you'd swing by and look through the basement. I think I left a few winter coats or something." I gave a polite nod. "Text me. If I'm free, I'll unlock the door." Her lips parted like she wanted to say more. Maybe ask a question she couldn't quite frame. But I didn't give her the space. "Take care, Lauren." Then I stepped back inside. That became the pattern. She'd find reasons. Small, flimsy excuses to text or call. "Do you still have that green casserole dish? Did my mom leave a picture frame at your place? I think I forgot my yoga mat in the garage." Each time, I responded politely. Brief, no more than a sentence or two. Always on my terms, and never with warmth. She started showing up more often under the guise of retrieval, but really just orbiting, hovering at the edges of my life, trying to peek inside without admitting she was still looking. Once, she caught me coming out with Emily after a supply run. I saw her parked across the street in her car, pretending to be on her phone. She didn't wave. Neither did I. That night I got another text. "You and Emily seemed close. Hope she knows how hard you are to live with." I stared at the screen. Felt a flicker of the old anger rise, the one she used to summon with just a smirker. A half jab in front of our friends, but I didn't feed it. I just turned off the fin end, left it charging in the kitchen, let her sit. In the silence, let her wonder what it meant. Emily's invite came without fanfare. No build-up, no pressure. "Hey," she said, flipping through paint samples at my dining table. "My friend's doing a gallery opening downtown this weekend. Small thing, local. Artists, bad wine. Overpriced stove? You, in?" I didn't hesitate. Yeah, I said, why not? I hadn't dressed up in a while. Not really, but that night, stood in front of the mirror longer than usual. Dark shirt, clean lights, no tie. I even put a little effort into my hair. When I stepped out, Emily gave a half smile and raised an eyebrow. Damn, she said, nudging me with her elbow. Remind me to never invite you somewhere I want to be the best-looking person in the room. The gallery was tucked inside a red brick building, a side street I'd driven past 100 times without noticing. Inside, lighting was soft and moody, the kind that made everything look a little more important than it really was. Paintings hung crooked, sculptures that looked like twisted wire and melted. Glass took center stage. Emily introduced me to a few people, all artists. Mostly broke. Endlessly interesting. We sipped cheap Chardonnay and traded quiet jokes about abstract canvases, and somewhere between a laugh and a story about her college roommate tried to sell emotionally blessed crystals. I noticed something. Strange. I felt good. Not just content, not just holding it together. Actually good, maybe. It was the wine. Maybe it was Emily's hand brushing mine every so oft when we reached for the same toothpick appetizer. Or maybe it was just the simple piece of not being haunted for once. At one point, a local photographer Emily knew asked to take a photo. You two look great together, she said before snapping. I didn't even realize Emily's arm was around my waist until I felt her thumb tap against my side. It wasn't a pose, it wasn't performative, it just was. 2 days later, the photos went up. Someone tagged Emily, someone else tagged me, and within hours, the image was quietly making the rounds. Not viral, not dramatic, just visible enough to ripple through our old circle. There we were, standing side by side, me in a crisp button dash down. Emily in a sleeveless, navy dress. Her arm snug around my waist, my hand resting gently along her shoulder. Both of us smiling, not too wide, just enough to say we were there. And we were fine. That same evening, Lauren's Instagram lit up first. A black screen with white text. Some people heal fast. Must be nice to never feel anything at all. Then a photo of a wine glass held loosely between her fingers, captioned, "Funny how people trade one lie for another." The likes trickled in, mostly pity hearts, a few mutuals. Double tapped out of habit, but no comments. No one rallied. No one gassed her up, and I didn't respond. Didn't message her, didn't defend myself. Because the truth, there was nothing to defend. Once I hadn't done anything for the sake of proving a point or making her jealous. I didn't go to that gallery to show off. Went because I wanted to be there, because Emily had invited me, because life didn't stop with a divorce decree. And Lauren, watching from the sidelines of a life she thought she'd left behind, finally saw it. I wasn't standing still anymore. I was moving forward. Without her, it was almost midnight when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I didn't. Need to guess the hour? The silence of the night? The sudden sharp buzz? It all pointed to one person. I let it ring twice, 3 times, then I answered. Mark. Her voice slurred slightly, familiar but foggy, like a song played through a broken speaker. I leaned back on the couch, one leg propped over the other, remote still in my hand. I didn't speak right away. She filled the silence herself. No, it's late, she said. I didn't know who else to call. Glass clinked on her end. Maybe a tumbler? Half-melted ice cube shifting us? She fumbled for the right words. A beat of silence. Then, we could have worked it out, you know, I exhaled slowly. The TV screen still glowed faintly, paused on a scene I wasn't watching outside. Streetlights hummed their quiet electricity. Everything in the room was still except for her voice, bleeding through the line like spilled ink. I mean, we had bad moments. Yeah, she went on, tone half defensive, half wistful. But who doesn't? We were good at one point. Remember that trip to Denver? You said you never felt more, I don't know, like yourself. There was a pause. Her breathing stuttered, then picked back up. I just think maybe we rushed the divorce. All of it. Maybe if we had waited or if I had slowed down, She trailed off, waiting. I didn't speak. I could hear her swallow, then laugh softly, brittle-like. A cracked windshield trying to hold together. You're not going to say anything, are you? Still, I stayed quiet, because there was nothing to Sathit hadn't already been signed. Sealed and boxed up months ago. No apology would reset the clock. No confession would undo the choice. Made so confidently, then she tried again. Do you ever think about us? I closed my eyes, tilted my head back against the couch, and finally I answered. You left. 3 words. Calm. Clear. A simple fact. She didn't respond right away. I heard her breath catch. A faint inhale, like she'd been expecting something softer. Maybe even something crueler. Not this. Not indifference. I just finally agreed. I added another. Silence stretched between us, long and uncomfortable. This time, she didn't fill it. She just let it grow, like a rope pulling tighter between to people drifting in opposite directions. You sound so different, she whispered. I am. She let out a soft sob, barely audible. Not the kind of crying that demands attention, just the quiet. Broken kinthat comes when even pride's too tired to show up. I could have said it wasn't. Fast. That I'd spent weeks staring at the walls. Rebuilding my spine one breath at a time. I could have told her how much effort it took to be this calm. But what good would that do? You should get some sleep, Lauren. A pause. Yeah, she said, her voice smaller now. I probably should. She didn't say goodbye, just the soft click of the call ending, leaving my apartment in silence. Again, I set the phone down and let the moment wash over me. Not sadness, not anger, just a cold, clean clarity, the kind you only feel when someone finally admits without meaning to that they never expected you to be okay without them, and yet there you are, fine, unshaken, already gone. It was nearly midnight when the knock came. Not the kind you expect, not the firm, confident knock of a neighbor or a friend. This one was softer, desperate. 3 uneven taps, followed by silence. And then a fourth. It's like she'd second-guessed herself. I had just gotten out of the shower. Emily was in the kitchen, barefoot, sipping tea from my favorite mug, the one with the chip on the handle. She smiled when I passed by. The kind of easy comfort that had slowly become the rhythm of my evenings. Then the knock. I froze halfway to the hallway. Who's that at this hour? Emily asked, voice light. Don't know, I said. But I already had a sinking feeling when I opened the door. Lauren was standing there, hair pulled back, mascara smudged, coat clutched around her like armor made of fabric, and regret. The wind whipped around her, catching the ends of her scarf, but she didn't move. Mark, she breathed, as if saying my name might conjure up something she could still recognize. I didn't invite her in. She stood in the doorway, shivering, eyes wide and brimming with something volatile. Panic, maybe, or guilt finally arriving. Too late. I didn't know where else to go, she said, voice cracking. I've been driving around for over an hour. I waited. I messed everything up. Her voice dropped into something raw. I thought I needed space. I thought leaving would fix. I don't know. Whatever was broken, but it didn't. It just made everything worse. Her lip trembled. I'm not okay. I miss you. I miss what we had. She looked up at me, hands shaking now. Please, Mark, I want to come home. And then her eyes flicked past me. Just a few feet behind, on the armchair in the living room, Emily's coat, draped casually, light beiged, with that little tear on the cuff she always forgot to fix. It wasn't flashy, but Lauren's expression changed the second she saw it. Her breath caught in her throat, her shoulders stiffened, and for the first time in months, I saw it the moment it hit her. She was no longer the center of gravity in my world, that someone else's presence had filled the space she'd abandoned. She blinked hard, as if the image would change if she'd just reset her vision. Her voice shrank. She's here. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. The silence between us was louder than anything I could have said. I thought. She started, then faltered. I thought we still had time. She reached out, fingers brushing the edge of the door for Mech. It might hold her up. Her lip quivered, and then like something inside her finally gave way. She began to cry. Not pretty tears, not quiet sorrow, full, broken sobs that shook her whole frame. The kind that come when you realize you lost something relearned. There's no bargaining left to do. I stood there, watching the storm play out on her face. I felt no malice, no vengeance, only distance. You should go, I said softly. She nodded through the sobs. Backing away one step at a time, the porch light cast a dull glow on her as she turned, and as the door clicked shut behind me, her cries lingered in the hallway like smoke that refused to. Lift. Emily emerged from the kitchen, quiet, holding her mug. She okay? She asked gently. I stared at the door for a long second before answering. No, I said, but it's not mine to fix anymore. The backlash came quietly, not like a tidal wave, but like water slowly soaking through the walls. At first it was subtle. A few cold shoulders at mutual events. A vague text from Rachel. You're someone we both used to consider a friend, saying, "Hey, just checking in. Lauren's been saying some things. You okay?" I didn't ask what things. I didn't need to. She was trying to rewrite the story. She couldn't touch me. Directly, not anymore, but through others. Through implication and suggestion, that was still her game. Always subtle, always slanted. Mark moved. On too fast? Mark didn't even try to fix the marriage. Mark made her feel placeable. She'd always been good at shaping narratives, especially the kind that made her look like the misunderstood one. But something was different now. People weren't buying it. Over the next few weeks, the shift became visible. Friends who once sat on the fence started drifting toward me. Not because I asked, but because the truth has a way of surfacing when you stop trying to prove it. Jason, an old college buddy, called out of nowhere. Saw Lauren the other night, he said. She cornered me at that wine bar near Lexington. Told me you had someone lined up before the ink was dry, man. She's unraveling. Another friend. Megan reached out after seeing Lauren at a birthday party. She showed up late, looked off, drank 3 cocktails in an hour. Started telling people you flipped the house out of spite. Said you were flaunting your new trophy. Megan hesitated. She doesn't sound okay. I didn't respond with bitterness. I just listened, because deep down I already knew the Lauren I had once loved, the sharp, confident woman who lit up rooms and outmaneuvered everyone she met, had turned brittle. Her control was cracking, and with each attempt to twist the story, she exposed more of her own fracture lines. The photos on her social media changed too, gone. Where the sunsets and cocktails, now it was grainy bar selfies, captions like, "Starting over again." Or, "When the people you trust turn out to be liars, pour another glass." The comments were polite. The engagement was lower. Fewer hearts. No enthusiastic support. I saw one post that made me pause. A dimly lit shot of a half-empty bottle of wine beside a takeout box, captioned, "Company of one." As usual, that one didn't sit right, not because I missed her, but because I recognized the silence behind it, the heavy, echoing kin that used to live in my own bones not too long ago. Emily noticed it too. "She's slipping," she said. One evening, as we stood on my balcony, the city lights blinking soft below us. I nodded. "I know. You okay with that?" "Right." I took a breath, watching a cab drift down the street like a slow comet. "I didn't want this for her," I said, "even after everything. But she made her choices." Emily rested a hand on my arm. "She underestimated you." "No," I said. "She overestimated the power she still had." I wasn't angry. I wasn't vindicated. Just distant, like a storm I'd already driven through. Watching someone else get caught in the rain, still thinking they're the one holding the wheel. The house didn't look like itself anymore. That was the first thing. I noticed said the day the final staging wrapped, where there was once a cluttered hallway lined with forgotten picture frames and scuff marks on the floor, now stood a space washed. In soft neutrals and warm light, the kitchen gleamed like it belonged in a magazine. Hardwood floors stretched smooth beneath polished windows. Even the air smelled different. Fresh paint. Faint citrus. Emily stood beside me, arms crossed, chin tilted as she surveyed our work. She said, if this doesn't sell in 2 days, the market's broken. I smiled, letting the moment sink in. It had taken months, countless weekends, late nights measuring backsplash, fixing plumbing surprises, arguing about light fixtures, but we'd done it. Not just a renovation, a reinvention. I walked from room to room, my footsteps quiet, steady. Each space I entered used to hold a memory. Now they held only light. When I reached the front door, Emily handed me a folder. Closing documents, she said, ready to sign. I took the pen without hesitation, not like last time. This signature didn't sting. It didn't mark an ending. It marked a beginning cleaner, clearer. By noon the next day, the house was officially sold, above asking price. The buyers, a young couple expecting their first child, had fallen in love the moment they stepped in. Said it felt like home. I didn't tell them it used to be one. Later that night, I was sitting at my kitchen table, sipping black coffee, scrolling through property listings. Emily had left open on my laptop. She thought we might take on another flip. Maybe even do it as a formal partnership. That's when my phone buzzed. Lauren, the message was short, flat. Congratulations. No punctuation, no emoji, just that one word floating in the void between what wasn't, what never will be again. I stared at it for a long second, then set the phone down, face down, and turned back to the screen. There was nothing more to say. No thank you, no acknowledgement, no echo. Some things didn't deserve closure. They deserved silence. Emily walked in a few minutes later, hair tied back, sleeves rolled, holding a glass of water. She glanced at the untouched coffee in my hand. Need something stronger? I chuckled. Not tonight. She nodded, then took the seat across from me. We sat in a quiet that wasn't awkward, just full. Outside, streetlights flickered on. A breeze nudged the curtains. Inside, everything felt still, balanced. Not dramatic, not explosive, just done. And for the first time in a long, long time, I liked the sound of that. The storm rolled in fast. One moment, the sky was clear. Just the soft blue of early evening, the hum of distant traffic, the chirp of crickets weaving into the quiet. Then, without warning, clouds thickened like bruises across the horizon. The air shifted heavy, charged. I was in the kitchen when the first drop struck the window. By the time I poured my second cup of coffee, the rain was drumming against the roof like a restless heartbeat. It had been a week since the house sold. A week since I turned my phone to silent and left Lauren's message unread. I hadn't heard from her since, and I assumed it was the end. Until the knock, it was faint at first. One knock uncertain, then two more louder, uneven. I froze. Rain blurred the glass in the front door, but even through the distortion, I saw her shape, Lauren. Hair-soaked arms, folded tight across her chest. Mascara trailing in twin lines down her cheeks. She stood under the porch light, shivering in the rain. I was locked on the door, like it was the only thing holding her upright. I opened it slowly. She didn't speak at first. Just looked at me with that expression I'd once memorized. Desperate, soft, trying to find the version of me who used to come running. But that man was gone. Finally, she found her voice. Please, she said barely above a whisper. I didn't know where else to go. Rain traced her collarbone. Her blouse clung to her like wilted paper. She looked smaller than I remembered, defeated in a way she'd never allowed herself to be. Mark, she said again. Can we just talk? I didn't move. Didn't invite her in. Glanced behind me. Emily's jacket still hung on the back of the chair. Her mug sat drying by the sink. The subtle evidence of a life moving forward. And Lauren. She was still standing in a memory. You said you were free now, she choked. But I see it. I see you're just hiding from me, from what we were. I stared at her for a long moment, then said calmly, this isn't your place anymore. She blinked, took a step forward, just one, as if the sentence hadn't fully landed yet. I didn't move, didn't raise my voice. I simply began to close the door, slowly, deliberately. Her face crumpled, not into anger, not into rage, just sorrow. Pure and unfiltered. Her knees buckled slightly as she dropped onto the steps, tears vanishing into the downpour. The door clicked shut behind me. I stood there, hand on the knob, listening. Her sobs echoed through the storm, muffled by the rain. I didn't reopen it, not out of cruelty, but because closure doesn't come with a dramatic speech or a final kiss in the rain. Sometimes it comes in the form of a door closed firmly. Finally, and peace. Peace is knowing you didn't walk away. You just stopped waiting at a door that should have never been yours to begin.
What do you think? Should he have listened? Or was silence the right answer? Let me know in the comments. And if stories like this speak to you, consider subscribing. More are coming soon.